Oh, hey, you. Good morning. It's almost 6 a.m. Yep, it's almost 6 a.m. in the family Manor house. And my title today is inspired by Edgar Mendex, a long-time subscriber of my channel. Um, as you may or may not know, my channel's been running for about 4 months. This channel, before that I was hard at work commenting on the David Manor YouTube page. But I call this though. What did I call? It's been a while. Andrea came down and interrupted me partway through as I was about to start the stream. The Whine of Babylon. Let's just quickly look at that phrase. The Whine of Babylon comes from the Bible, and it is, thanks for reminding me, Edgar, that it is, it is basically an analogy, I think, for the poison that we drink and seduces us. So you could call it fluoride in the modern context. You could call it alcohol. You could call it that other nasty stuff they sell now. Not the Red Bull, the other stuff. What's that? Lucozade. Oh my God, that's a poison. I see my 17-year-old son's pals come in with 1 liter bottles to hang out at home and drink this shit and play like games on a computer. Let me tell you, I'm sure not so good for us. But Whine of Babylon, and that the word wine can also mean like the moaning wine. And Babylon is an interesting word. Everyone knows, most people know the common reference to Babylon, the place or some mystical place. But Babylon also refers to the word Babel, which is, chitter chatter. Some people might say what I'm doing now is babbling. I've had some really lovely comments, and I want to thank those people for saying some very nice things. It certainly goes a long way to hear genuine, heartfelt comments like that, where to contrast with some of the less positive things that people babble when they've had too much wine or they're just wanting to whine. Yes, I think that we've been seduced by a million points of wine, a million, different reasons or different things that have caused us our separation. I think that something that I'm mulling over is a comment that, or a rebuke I got from Dave Murphy the other day on something I'd written. Now, I'm genuinely interested in understanding greater knowledge than I currently have. Hey, someone's here. Thanks, Dean. You are just about the longest subscriber I've had on this channel. I know I have to say that would be Lee from the Flat Earth sub channel. But Zane, it's always lovely to catch you, my friend, and thanks for your fantastic lyrics and interesting and energetic input. But back to the point here. Yeah, the rebuke I got from Dave Murphy, or allegedly Dave, was to do with this idea that, I read the Bible as a child, I rejected the Bible as a youngster, and I bought another copy of the Bible when I discovered the flat earth, because as I discovered flat earth as a child in the Bible, I was like, oh, Bible is right. Now, when you start studying the Bible as an adult, you realize there are a bazillion different versions. There are apocrypha, books that were deemed unfit for our hearing. You've got the Roman Catholic Church trying to prevent people from having access to various Bibles. So it does create an interesting soup of babble. And it's seductive for people to go, well, this is my version, or that's my version, or I align with this version because it escaped certain levels of certain things. But it seems to me that religion has always had this agenda of separating people from their God or their creator, the Most High, as some people say, or Allah. So I've been kind of anti-religion, but I was sort of it was Dave Murphy said I was propounding or professing to be part of a religion, which came as a surprise to me because my view is to reject things that have been made by man. There's that dichotomy, isn't there? There's things that are fantastically useful in the Bible, and then there's things you go, well, should you really be applying that? And something that I do take from the Bible is that, or from many readings, is that to know God is to know yourself, and if you're looking for God, you will find Him, closer than this vein in your neck, and the temples in your skull are here, and the temple of God somehow is residing, therefore here. Golgotha in the Bible is the place of the skull, and the bone that holds up the skull is the atlas bone, isn't it? So I am constantly reviewing myself to consider whether or not I am falling foul of getting caught up in dogma versus knowing myself. The Bible says don't take any, or Jesus says, or I can't say exactly who says this, but it's pretty clear information that says don't take any idols, don't take any crosses or markings or whatever to say you belong to some kind of club. And I include books in that. Idols are books, and this when I had these Iraqi refugees live with me in 1994, 93, 94. I had these 3 or was it 4 guys come live with me for a while, and at that period in Cape Town, and they didn't want me to touch the pages of their Quran. I'd gone out and bought new pots so we could eat halal, and that they were quite insistent that I use different pots for their food. So I was very respectful of that, and I never felt the need to open their Quran, particularly as they'd said, it wasn't really for me. But for them, that is the true and only word of God or Allah that they need to adhere to. And of course, within their own religion, there are sects who would say, no, there's another version. And that's what I keep encountering. No matter how well informed the people around me become, sometimes we relied perhaps too much on a particular dogma, because it is the case that if you seek inside yourself, you start to see the answers, or you start to feel the answers in your heart and in yourself. And so whilst I see these books as fantastic background information and guidance, because there's fantastic guidance in these, and then there's so many truths in them, I have no issue seeing that. And maybe this unfolding that we're seeing now was predicted in these books and so on, or maybe it was simply set in motion. I sometimes think about this, that the system was set in motion, and simply used its own kinetic energy, like a perpetual motion device, to keep running for X number of years, and you see on the John Smith Global tour, you see great examples of all the other guys out there in the public eye doing fantastic work. Much credit to them, but you see people come from the best, well-educated backgrounds. So these are not people. There are not people. There are not people over at the best schools in the world, Eton or the Harvard or whatever, who are sitting in classrooms going, we know the earth is flat. We're hiding other land, and we're going to continue doing that, continue this thing. I don't know that is the case at all. It may be the case that there is some dark room somewhere where people know these truths, and they have at some point realized these truths and have thought, well, how do we eventually let this out? But it's very possible that this system was set up to allow it to run itself until people worked it out for themselves, and enough folks kind of got that head of clarity to remove the whine, to remove the babble, and to reduce the influence of this startup. So let's just say that, just keep it simple, that say 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, 2 or 3 Egyptian kind of pharaohs or family lines or whatever said, okay, well, look, this is how we're going to carve it up. We're going to set this thing in motion. It's a very simplistic example, I know. We're going to set this thing in motion and then let it run. It will run for an X period of time. Now, 7,000 years may seem like a long time in our sort of scheme of things, but actually in the scheme of the human story, it may only be a droplet of time. And they knew that there was an age. They knew that the stars and the alignment of energies and so on, the access to sort of cleaner energies from the Most High was going to be an opportunity for them to exploit our willingness to drink the wine. Because that's actually what you see, hey, is that people are mostly so willing to drink the wine. I think Harry on the Globe Line tour says it quite well when he says, because people say, but what happens if it turns out that the flat Earth, they can show us something that takes us beyond the flat Earth, and he says, well, then he would be willing to, because he already has once before. Been willing to admit that his entire construct was all built on a lie. So, if he, my little boy, he's got the cat in his sights. If he, if he's willing to do that, then yes, you should say, well, I'm willing to go the next step, and if there's information that turns out that Earth is a cuboid or something else, or it really does have, there is some sort of outer space that really does exist outside of the waters, then he'd be willing to go there. I suspect that he would be. I'd like to think that most of us would have that kind of willingness. But I have to admit, I have seen a lot of folks getting kind of super clammed up on the model and the book that they happen to still like. And the Eric Dubay model of the flat Earth, the Mark Sargent model of the flat Earth, these are models that these, these are attractive personalities who want to get people, I think, to sort of attach themselves to a single model, and then stay in the fight. Get attached to a single book. I've gone past those books, and here I am. I'm so well learned. I'm at this book that only a few people have read, and therefore I'm one of the 144,000 or whatever. I still think that's kind of like choosing something that was made of man, choosing a model that was made of man. And I'd love to know if there is an age, or if there's more land, and it travels east and west infinitely, as I think it might. I'd love to know these things, but I kind of keep finding myself feeling uncomfortable when I'm having to argue with people over this, And I think this is part of my learning is that there is, in choosing to be a flat earther, you're still choosing to be a member of a club, no matter whether or not you want to be in this club of flat earth or that club of flat earth, and I see it particularly with the sort of Christian aspect of it, like, whoa, if you've got the Christian kind of angle going, then you're part of a particular club. Apparently, I'm coming from too much of a New Age angle. In fact, that sounds like a club too. Heck, and I don't really want to be finding myself babbling on behalf of something that would clearly be managed, because according to most folks, we are moving into a new age, or we moved into the age of Aquarius some while ago, and so that is a new age, and it does purport or portent greater or changes in the way that things are. But again, this is passed down to me by booklets and so on, so I don't want to get too kind of caught up in the idea that we're in a new age, and therefore that there should be a new way of thinking and new energies that allow for a higher or a different vibration, a different set of knowledge. So I'm not wanting to kind of call myself too much of anything, but I do think that the way forward is within, and that we individually can make those changes within, which lead to the changes without. And I hope to, that's the best example that I can be. And if that doesn't sound like what Muhammad at the before Medina, Muhammad at the it's been a while since I thought about this stuff. There was the Medina period at the end, and before that he lived in Mecca. Is that right? If I'm wrong, please correct me. But if that doesn't sound like the sort of Buddha-esque kind of thing, the untainted version of what a Christ character, not necessarily Christ the man. Don't want to get into that argument. A Christ character is trying to point us to, then I've misunderstood the teachings that these folks are trying to pass down. So, yeah, just some food for thought. And one other thing is this phrase, water, separating the waters from the waters, that comes out of the Bible. I was mindful about that too. In the original school of thought, for me, it was that, you had a body of water, and you kind of separated them. You created an envelope in which, there's a ball envelope in which they could exist, or an envelope in which they could create this sort of atmosphere and so on. But I'm still kind of comfortable with the idea that what's below sort of 10 miles or whatever below, once we hit something below that, it might be a sort of water of a sort that is impenetrable to us in this 3D realm, but it's like a sort of water, and there's another water, what they call the firmament, the roof above, and things that are twinkling sometimes inside of this moving roof are what we call stars. But here's the thought. You see, this space here, in between the waters and the waters, is what we call atmosphere. Now, this atmosphere is an interesting mix of things, but it's predominantly got water in it. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's like a water-rich, water-rich, but like thin water. Yeah, this is very thick water. Up here is so thick we can't penetrate it with our rockets or our bombs, and down here there's that wonderful evidence. It seems. I mean, I can't, obviously I can't go, say this is for sure, but that evidence, that footage of a submarine at very low depths bouncing off the lake of what seems like some other kind of water below that. Is that real? I don't know, but it's compelling. Now, if you've got this area in between is water, and the little creatures, the little ants, the locusts, or whatever we are, these beautiful humans, these creations are also water. Yeah. Then, when you separate the waters from the waters, to separate the atmospheric water from the water, this is me, you need what? You need the skin. So you create like an impenetrable firmament, and you call it the skin. And you create a universe inside of that, or a world inside of that, which is absolutely perfect. But then you poison it, so that it goes to war with itself and starts to eat itself up from the inside out. And in a way, that's what we're doing with the Earth. I mean, the system of global polluting and using oil when we could use hemp, using oil when we could be using the ether for free energy, So what are we doing? Are we if we think about ourselves eating fried food all day long every day and becoming very pimply and skin erupting with sores and so on, and boils and pustules and so on, limbs that stop, or joints that stop working so well, they don't function anymore and so on. If you think about that in the sort of global sense, then you think, well, that's what we do when we put our toxic sludge into the water courses. That's what we do when we go and we hack down sections of vital lungs, like the forests and so on. We smoke out the clean air, the chimneys that clean the air. We clog up the cleaning and the cleansing mechanisms of our oceans. We clog these things up with all our shit, the plastics and other toxins and oils and so on. The Earth is a phenomenal self-cleaning agent, and so it continues to provide us with fresh air each day, despite what we do. It cleans the oceans despite what we do. But I wonder if there's a tipping point at which this beautiful creation we could call the human has too many Kentucky Fried Chicken dinners, has too much Lucozade, and actually the ruptures and pustules and what have you turn into something more serious. The doctors get involved, the chemotherapy surgeons and specialists get involved, and the profiteering continues. you can take the same analogy with the Earth, because we destroy, say, the Gulf of what's it called, the Gulf of Texas, or that area that had that BP oil spill a few years ago, or that other terrible oil spill with the tanker, where we allow a tanker, let's call it the oil spill, could be the Lucozade or the KFC or whatever McDonald's crap. That could be the oil spill, right? And you keep spilling oil in that bay. Well, one, you're going to pay the doctors to kind of clean it up, and two, eventually that bay will become devoid of healthy life. I'm not saying it will die altogether, but the diversity of that place, the richness of that place, will be almost gone away, and that is perhaps where humanity is sort of heading, is to a place where we will be so entranced by the wine that we will be devoid of potentiality for good life and for this beautiful expression that the Most High sought after. Why? Was it just a few bad Egyptians back 7,000 years ago? Is it simply the machinations of a greedy mankind, warlike mankind, or is it really just a test? And you've been brought here to kind of see whether you can taste the wine and then set it aside and find that clarity of mind. That's what I'm seeking. I don't want to take no favor for no group, no religion, no whatever. I just want to seek that clarity of mind and clarity of purpose, without need for no dogma. And if you can hear yourself, you hear your inner voice, and you're responding to that in a genuine, heart-centered way, and so on, then what more can you ask for? Anyway, I won't belabor. I've got a young. Damn, sorry about that. Minor technical malfunction. I won't belabor. My young boy is up and about, and it's my wife, and we were having a very interesting conversation, she and I, just now. What were we talking about, honey?
That I woke up with a song. I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
Andrea woke up with this song in her head. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. You can fast forward this bit. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Yeah, don't forget to do your sun gazing.
I had clarity of mind, didn't I?
It's the clarity of mind.
Clarity of mind that the truths are there. You just 95% of us don't want to.
There you go. The truths are there. 95% of us just don't want to face up to that.
And
won't. Not now. And no matter what we do, it would seem no matter what we do, we can't make them.
No, because it's a personal journey, isn't it?
It's that personal journey. That personal journey. And people are not going to want to make it while they can still stay in the ring and fight. So we have to use what we have to demonstrate that we can be the light. So I had a few comments come through while I was yaggering. Let me see if I can read a few of them. My eyesight is so good that I can't read. The Zane, man. Zane writes some fantastic stuff. I can't even read this though. I think some evil doctors are getting unknown patients testosterone shots or estrogen, about in the. I should get my glasses, baby.
They don't need to. We just eat the food that's gross.
In the womb too, yeah. The way we are ending up with men who think they something trapped in man's. Oh yeah, well, yeah. I should talk maybe. I don't like these to go on for too long because I know you have a busy life to attend to and much to learn in the free time that you have available, given that so many of us have to spend hours and hours grafting to keep the roof over our heads. But yes, there is in every theatre, in almost every conceivable sphere of human experience is traduced, is poisoned, is held back, damaged, destroyed. Talk about caring for the animals on this earth. There is probably far better animal rights than there are human rights when it comes down to it, because we are all of us under constant onslaught, attack. I actually have started to allow myself to think this, because it's been in my mind for many a year, but to allow myself to think that we are, the human biome is at total war. There is a total war against the human, against the waters within here, and from the top to the bottom, toe to top to bottom, and so what we see in the gender bender kind of situation is that what we see is a whole raft of things changing from what was the original setting, and you don't even need to focus on sensitive subjects like homosexuality and transgenderism and so on. You need to be able to speak these words, but there's many other areas where we see a disability coming in. Pretty much most things on the autistic spectrum, or many things on the autistic spectrum, are things that have been, I suggest, poisoned into the system, whether it be pre or post birth. There's no doubt in my mind. However, it would be a continuation of this system of racism, of separatism, of elitism, or whatever, to go, well, that person their mum was chemically altered by something she took it during childbirth, and so the baby was somewhat deformed or somewhat retarded in the brain capacities in some way, and so I'm going to treat them different. I'm going to mistreat them, or I'm going to categorize them and castigate them. Well, I even as a small boy, I used to think that that would be an unfair thing to do. I admit that on the issue of homosexuality, by the time I was a mid-teen, I'd been indoctrinated into the idea that it was a laughable thing, and a thing to be sort of made fun of, rather than an understanding of this is a version of us, and whether or not the creator created it or intended it to be created that way, it is what it is. So what am I to do about that? Do I want to make fun of people who look a certain way, who walk a certain way, who talk a certain way, or who have a particular preference when it comes to what they and other sane individuals get up to in their bedroom or at the beach. You know, and I think that if you are honest with yourself, until you, well, I mean, until you love yourself, fully, until you're happy with yourself. Andrew just came by and swung this at me. It's true though. Until you love yourself, and then I think loving others in a sort of or allowing others to be who they are, gets easier. But I see even here in this flat Earth kind of awakening. Let me just say that I know that now that flat Earth is a stepping stone. It's the board that the game is played on. I don't think it's the game itself. But sorry, Alexander, I won't be long. Sorry. Yeah, I need a rock and roll, but. Fighting the players is exactly what the game owners want you to do, is to fight the other players. Doesn't matter what you fight over, just keep fighting. Just find a reason to fight and to separate and to divide. And once you've done that, then you can provide a leadership. There's nothing wrong with being a guide or a teacher, but leadership, you should be, if you're a teacher, you should be encouraging all of your students to become teachers, and for them all to be leaders by their own example. One of the things I had coming up in the church system was, there is very clear hierarchy and so on, and the thing about being learned, about being a man of books, is that you're saying to others that the only way to this knowledge is by reading 1,000,000 books. But reading the books that I've read, or the ones that I agree with. And that's always a recipe for a continuation of status quo. Because status quo wants you to follow books and follow men who read books, rather than following your heart. Because they say that the word of the Most High is written upon your heart. So once you get rid of the fluoride and the KFC and the King James Version, or whatever other book you profess is the only word, then you start to listen to yourself. You do need to do practices to stretch, to stay quiet, or to center the mind while you're working or doing something, meditating, whatever. You do need to do these things. I think you do. If you're ever going to hear yourself and to know the self, is surely, for me, where I'm at is to say that if we know ourselves, then we don't have to trust other men, and we don't have to trust ancient books. And we can become those wise men. We can become those men of higher standing who bring the light, that men and women of high standing that bring the light, and thereby bring the Most High's idea of I don't know, maybe that doesn't matter so much, just raising your own game, raising your own vibration, and then the rest will fall into place. Hey Zane, I've got a few folks here, and I'm really sort of struggling to read this. Thank you for your comments. I will go back and look at them again later and so on. I really appreciate all of your support and so on. Shit. It is 6:30. I gotta go. Bit of a long day in the saddle. No, I'm gardening today, so it's all good. Yeah, I wish you well. Have a great day, and thanks so much for stopping by.